her reading. I want to let you know we are tickled, if I'm tickled pink, if tickled pink is possible, at our guest poet tonight. And we're just delighted to have with us Jennifer Richter. And just want to share with you a little bit before we invite her up. She's going to read till about 10 till 8, and we're going to make sure that we leave some time at the end of the reading for you to ask her some of your most profound questions about her work. The Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee and the Letting Library of Milwaukie are delighted to continue the 10th season of the Milwaukie Poetry Series with a reading by the fabulous Jennifer Richter. Jennifer's second poetry collection, No Acute Distress, is a 2017 Oregon Book Award finalist. Would you put your hands together? It gets even better. Her first book, Threshold, was chosen by Natasha Thruffway for the Crab Orchard series in poetry, and by Robert Pinsky as an Oregon Book Award finalist. And I believe that those, both Trethway and Robert Pinsky, are U.S. Poet Laureates, if I remember correctly. She has been awarded an Oregon Literary Fellowship, as well as a Wallace Stegner Fellowship and Jones Lectureship in Poetry by Stanford University, where she taught in the creative writing program for 4 years. She currently teaches at Oregon State University, an MFA program. Would you put your hands together and welcome our guest, Jennifer Richter.
Hi, everybody. Hi. It's nice to see you. Yeah, I'm significantly smaller than Emmett. Emmett, thank you very much. Thanks to the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee in the first place for inviting me. Thank you to the Friends of the Letting Library for hosting us in this gorgeous setting that feels so welcoming every time I'm here. And sending a big, warm, healthy shout out to Tom Hogan, dear friend and poetry champion, who will be among us back in action very soon. So I'd like to start with a poem I wrote a few springs ago. It was after we had a big storm and a very big wind in one fell swoop blew all the petals off all of the plum trees on our street at once. And it was very dramatic and gorgeous because it looked like there was pink snow everywhere. And my son looked out the window with his friend, and they decided that, of course, what needed to happen is that they needed to have a petal fight. So I'm going to start with that poem. And it was this amazing image of these two grubby little boys with sort of blossoming with their arms full of pink petals. I'm also starting with this one because when I posted an announcement of this reading on Facebook yesterday, I promised that I'd imbued some of my poems with the magical power to bring on spring. So, so here's the first one of those. This poem is called Mom, Watch. Pink drifts line the street where my son crouches, scoops, and comes up, flowering. His friend bends too, eyeing the size of Luke's pile. In this morning storm, our plum tree dropped every wet petal, and now the boys face each other, throw open their arms, collapse in laughter when the petals they hurl go up, not out. Tossing, stooping, tossing. Children move vertically in the world. They leap into each deep puddle. They bet who can reach the highest branch. They climb our tree all the time. When Luke fell, I ran to him across the grass. A mother's life is horizontal. I drove. I paced the waiting room, folded his coat. At home, I pulled the covers to his chin. I wanted him to stay that way, but our natures aren't the same. In a moment, he was up. Now, I'm always watching that tree. More baby jays this year. Since he was small, Luke's pointed to the sky, loved anything that flies. One by one, each jay will fall or jump. I've watched the mother watch. I've watched her shuffle back and forth along her branch. Here's a poem for our daughter Chloe, on International Women's Day, after all. This poem is called My Daughter Brings Home Bones. My daughter brings home bones and piles them on the driveway. Femur, rib, jawbone with a few flat teeth attached, dozens of thin, arced parts. This is for me, 40 today. My birthday sent her to the woods and back. Chloe leans in on her knees, arranges the bones along a concrete seam that leads out to the street. In this next decade, she'll go, head off like today, take into her arms all she's curious about. Her line of bones makes an arrow, sun lights them like a sign. She'll go, undeniable as these bones, baffling as what animal they'd make. She's on all fours, the way I labored, some wild thing. She lays out arms and legs, the bones in line make a spine, my height. On the driveway lies my body when it held her inside out. The way she came, like bones, gleaming after living in my dark, gleaming, so I can always find her. This poem is from Mary Shebist. Her poem, Girls Overheard Assembling a Puzzle, inspired mine, which is called Girls Overheard While Eating Gourmet Jelly Beans. Pina coladas to die for. This one tastes like honey soap. Ew, licorice, my mom loves those. Some Easter bunny she is. Every year the same faded eggs in our yard. At least yours didn't make you go to church. Pass that basket. Stick out your tongue. Your breath's like bubble bath. Ooh, try passion fruit. They taste like lip gloss, but look like blood, little beads of it. Creepy. Ms. Willis said ovum 12 times in Friday's class. I heard she lives alone. This tastes like, that's just sad. Mango, definitely mango. Alone with all her weird tan human body models, probably. Coconut, like some mini chicken came and laid them. Don't try this kind unless you have a taste for apple candles. Licorice doesn't get good, but it gets better. My mom hangs on now when she hugs as if I'm going away for good. I wish. Grape is like communion juice. You know that boulder rolled away story? If they put me, pink lemonade, all those stands we had, all those boys on bikes. You know that if they shut me in some cave alone, I'd sure as hell find my way out too. Amen to that, sister. Cookie dough? Oh my God, take me now. Whoa, listen. Amen's got men in it. So I have consciously tried to incorporate humor into this book. It dives into some difficult subjects like chronic illness, and I thought one way to approach those poems, not only as the writer, but to give you as readers entrance into that subject, I would frame them in the structure of a classic joke form. I've been reading the poet Max Ritvo, and he said, anything that inspires fear or sadness has a dimension of humor built into it. I don't think you can ever introduce humor into fear or introduce humor into sadness. All you do is illuminate what was always there. I've titled each of these joke poems with language that I pulled from my own chart notes. This first one, this is the title poem of the collection, is called Pleasant, Healthy Appearing Adult White Female in No Acute Distress. Fancy seeing you here, my surgeon exclaims. His nurses roll their eyes above their masks. He drags a stool over, checks my line, winks, hi Smiley. My chart notes say cooperative. Come here often? 3 procedures, 2 years, 1 doctor. His findings are significant. Put me under and I'll laugh at anything. What's a girl like you doing in a place like this? He's warming up. He's counting down. It only takes till 8. Heavy velvet curtains rushing shut. House lights, down. His whisper from the wings, we've got to stop meeting like this. Did you hear the one about the woman whose illness made her confuse happiness and sadness? When her doctor said, how are you? She grinned, never better. Then she wailed, never better. Today's lack of response suggests that the patient is not a significant placebo responder. You've watched women desperate as you take him in the bathroom, open-mouthed, moaning, so sick of being let down that they'll insist with him they've never felt better. Though he's a tease, all talk, no action, every morning, women wake with his name on their lips. You're waiting for the one. He's out there, the ads of grins and picnics promise. Now your TV announces, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is he'll come with baggage, warnings, increased risks, possible sudden losses. And the good news? Live alone this long and you talk back. The good news is he'll definitely mess with your head. So some of the poems in this book are set in Vietnam, a place I've traveled to twice and love. And I wasn't conscious of it at the time I was writing the poems, though in retrospect I'm not surprised that some of the poems about illness sort of merged with the poems about Vietnam. I think because living the life of a chronically ill patient felt very foreign to me for many years. It never felt familiar. I felt like I was sort of nowhere I recognized, and each day I was trying to find my way. This next poem is set in Ho Chi Minh City, where a man sits out in front of a temple on a little stool next to a big basket full of birds, crammed with birds. I mean, so full of birds that there are like wings sticking out of the basket everywhere. It looks like an absolutely miserable existence for any bird who's in this cage. So here he is, and his business model is this, that so here you are leaving the temple feeling good, You walk by him, you offer him some small amount of money. He reaches into the cage, he hands you one of the birds. You make a wish and let the bird go, and it's win-win because you feel good, and the bird feels good, and he feels good, and it's a beautiful, beautiful idea in theory. And here's what happened instead. This is called Leaving Tianhao Temple. To load the bird with trouble, watch it fly away for good. I've paid a man for one brown sparrow pecking at its basket trap. Dozens in there. If they all flapped at once, it might lift off. Imagine that relief. Pink tissue paper flags curl toward the sky. I prayed for years, but now I'm winging it. The man's cupped hand is feathered, beaked, alive. The other one won't work. On Yen Tri Street, we make a desperate little trinity. The squirming bird bursts out, takes one quick spin above the tiled roof, then loops right back into the crowded cage. My pain smirks. See? It's singing now. You're nothing without me. At the heart of this book is a poem in 10 parts, and it's called 18 Seconds. Each part is speaking directly to a doctor, and it begins with an epigraph from the New York Times, which says, patients on average have 18 seconds to talk to a doctor before they're interrupted. And that kind of urgency, I feel like, from that epigraph fuels really the entire collection. So this is called 18 Seconds. 1. It started right here, the back of my head. The ache, the throb, the stab, it isn't those that keep me up. I'm in a separate bed, fragile, don't touch, perishable. We make our kids keep quiet inside. Nobody's fine. You know that ad, some New York hospital, a family's silhouette in sepia? Think how many hearts are saved by treating only one. How many more are wrecked with every round of inconclusive tests? 2. I guess there is some family history. My father in the waiting room looked down, nodded. I filled depression's circle black. I'd say I'm happiest when heading here. This is where I go in my free time. Now I'm ready for plan B. Happiness is something new to Google. Those who claim it's a warm puppy also tell me that I'll grow from this, except my dad's still driving me around, and I still take a child's dose. 3. I don't complain, don't want time off, don't need more drugs. I've tried Depakote, Cinequan, Zomig, Xanax, Toradol. Fuck you. Fuck your side effects, your scripts fanned out, then dealt to me for years. And Midrin, Flexeril, Vicodin, Axert, Celebrex, Frova that hooked me, what the fuck? Fioricet, Neurontin, Corgard, Effexor, and you, Scalaxin, Pamelor. Fuck Botox too. Ice works. Sometimes my neck gets too wound up. 4. Strong gusts, rain, any force against my head just kills me. Weather never used to hurt. 5 years this spring. How soon should I come back? Would you say now I'm a good candidate for radio frequency, what was it, ablation? As in erosion? Damn wind. 5 years this spring? How soon will they come back, those nerves, once they've been burned? What if they don't? My body's dragging like a plastic sack of batteries. They're dead or not. Can't tell. 5. You should see my lawn this year's so healthy. Mine's a healthy marriage. Me against my body isn't healthy competition. They have that healthy glow, people outside. Hospitals turn healthy profits. My goals, less healthy contempt for authority, more healthy attitude and appetite. This pain results in plastic pitcher mugs with bendy straws and lids. One symptom of I'm about to be discharged is no lunch. 6. I keep one-upping my worst fear each time I live through it. The latest, I know more than you. Last time we did C2, C3. Since then, it's like my neck's sunburned. I can't wear scarves or collars, but my head pain's down to 4. I'd say that's worth repeating, right? They tucked my hair into a cap, face down, then mask talk. Raise your thumb if you feel this. New Sharpie smell, a red dot marks the spot. It feels like that. Singed, permanent, bullseye. 7. My therapist tried hypnotizing me. Turns out I'm good at it, but nothing changed. Turns out, with no results, I tend to come back anyway, though that behavior's not rewarded. 10, 9, 8. How many weeks until my next procedure? I'm no mind reader. I've had to choose between 2 dooms. Accept the risk or call it good like this. No more scenarios. I'm sick and tired. At night, we use white noise machines like hers. 8. In most ways, I'm like no one else. Except when I'm the caption for that overused cartoon. I'm sorry, honey, not tonight. The woman with an ice bag on her head, a single squiggle on the husband's brow. I mostly dress up and undress for you. Tell me, are you seeing other patients just like me on a regular basis? What do we have in common? I'm desperate to be a type, labeled, buttoned down, nailed. 9. You said no side effects, but now I'm off the drug and nothing fits. Pants hang on me as if I'm worse. When I complained, you said, compared to the population at large, chronic pain patients have proven themselves to be less active. I don't recognize what healthy looks like. I was gone for good last night. My family, in my dream, had left the house, so I came back, did it myself, stripped the hangers, bagged my clothes for strangers. 10. I'm better since last time. I'm better since I don't need naps as much. Even though I don't need naps as much, I still have trouble sleeping. Trouble sleeping is still better than having trouble waking. Even though I calm my kids and say I understand, there's hardly anything I understand. I understand they're waking in the dark. Their dark is sometimes and is always me. I'm fine if you mean satisfactory. So my first collection is called Threshold, and I continue to be pretty obsessed with this idea of thresholds and liminal spaces and gray areas and thin lines, like thin lines we walk sometimes between health and illness. We have 2 teenagers at home, and I'm obsessed with the thin line they walk between adulthood and childhood, tipping one way or the other without a whole lot of notice sometimes. The girls in the next poem are also balancing on that threshold between childhood and adulthood. And this is the poem that the Friends so generously printed as a broadside for you. It's called Still Life, Youth Correctional Facility for Girls. The windows mirror them, unyielding, hardwired for toughness, each a different glimpse of the outside. Diagonal light snags their busted slinky stretched along the 10-foot fence background. Barbed shadows loop the kid-proofed common room. Its caged clock stuck at time for group. All in orange, they're spilled from the same basket. Some are cut, though the blade stays beyond the frame. Predictably dark green, tall, a guard's inanimate behind them. This scene teaches middle ground. Share the molded plastic sofa. Don't sprawl across it like cascading grapes. The handmade sign, bend like a willow, is a fallen, crinkled leaf. Still, this is better than what they left. Too much movement, just out of sight. The one sitting stiff as a pitcher feels even now his fingers squeezing tight around her arm. In the shady corner, a peach clinging to her leaves. Disappearance. Because she's not done growing, wings on Shayna's bird tattoo stretch long and faded on her thigh like nothing strong enough to fly. Wrong time, wrong place. How she answers, where are you from? Lock up. 2 more years. 15. 1 daughter on the outside, and some days, road crew stint, hypnotic sun. She sees her flying by, a glimpse of window-glinted hair and cheek. I swear. It's true. That fast, more hints of woman and my daughter keep on surfacing. To her, it feels like treasure rising from the wreck. I can't get past what's lost. This week, New Guinea divers claimed a speck deep in their sea was Earhart's plane. Some solo, Shayna scoffed. Surprise, she brought a man, she crashed. Insane. One day, it won't be me who guides my girl, whose legs ache every night, who lays my hand across her chest, unbalanced recently, one side still flat. Adult or child, undressed, she's half and half. I ride her swells of breath. I palm what waits, submerged. A boundary issue, Shayna yelled. That's a boundary issue. When her youth caseworker dialed the mother's number, then insisted he speak first. Most calls play out like others. Hell no, ask her aunt. Or even, she's dead to me. They looked for months before they called Amelia's search. I'm patted down each visit. Once in class, Shayna described the birth. Her daughter not hers, though she might still recognize her mouth, her cry. Mine sleeps face down, arms out, in flight. She meant good night, but said goodbye. What to leave out when you call the wildlife rescue line. Just like that, his crib-side voice is back, high-pitched and hushed, your husband's hovering over a trembling patch of tall grass where you're not rolling kickballs anymore, not filling plastic pools, not picnicking in tents. Your kids are out. The lawn grows up too fast. Easy for you to imagine the tiny possums letting go. Goodbye, baby-carrying body. You're stranded on the same blind path. You prowled years of wide-eyed nights, crept routine loops between two mewling mouths. Now you miss everything. Woke to find a newborn's dropped pink sock on your back stoop. What's lost is all you see. Help me find, he asks, bursting in, breathless, that one spill-proof bowl you kept. He rattles cabinets, fussing and flushed, cries out to you for milk. This poem is called Mom into Fox. And there's a very short epigraph with the word stroke, colon, noun, comma, verb. So stroke, noun, verb. Mom into Fox. She calls it only the episode. The forest she roams could be called a hostile environment. Before has been wiped out. Poof, magic, just like that. Prowling the house at night is new, though her complaints about dogs aren't. She travels solo now. Offer her your arm, and she's all teeth. My kiss on her forehead is half an inch from the leak underneath. When will they quit asking me, she groans. Who doesn't know the opposite of hot? Curls up, tucks head to chest, wraps around herself the fringed lap blanket. Bedtime stories used to comfort me. Anything can happen. Sometimes when she talks, she's gone. I can't follow. In the hospital, I nodded, petted her legs. Her hands have always been that small. This poem's called My Own Blood, and it also has an epigraph from the Atlantic. It says, one of the first steps of surgery is to tape patients' eyes shut. My own blood. With me, they skipped the tape. I woke too soon, face down to someone else's blood. I thought no body could leak like that and still be here to see. They test my mother's vision, fine, although she'd need my help to pick which coins would make $1.56. The cost, it's possible that what she's lost is gone. When her blood leaked, it stayed inside her head. It's possible she's kept it all. Our pain's the same behind one eye. She knows some studies trace mine back to her. Count 'em, 5 times in post-op, where she watched me sleep like 40 years ago, the name she chose around my wrist. No one called us lucky till we weren't, till after slim chance happened. Her surgeon tries. The opposite of bad is, I don't know this yet, but soon she will come back to me and I'll get better too, both mysteries. And can you tell me why you're here? He's flipping pages of her chart, says, get some rest, and leaves us in the dark. Patient states she has some fear that she might leave without being helped. What do you call a woman who's quit wishing but spends hours in a gown, her eyes on the door? Lately, when I don't know, I say, this is killing me. You got me, says my doctor with a chuckle. I give up. Imagine. The healer said to me, it worked because you thought it would. I let him palm my belly and my chest, Sometimes he shook and closed his eyes. Inches above my skin, he'd sweep his hands like smoothing sheets I couldn't see. I left our bed for years when I was sick. I understood our children then. Bed meant missing out. Bed felt like punishment. Now I sleep best at the edge, where the healer sat to rest. Your hand reaches for my hip, holds on. Our children's mouths sigh open in the dark. They're not surprised. The healer touched me, and it worked. They've seen magicians. Beneath the sheet that's pulled away, something's always gone. And I'd like to end with 2 new poems. This one's called Every Problem Tells a Story. The first time your son backs out of the driveway alone, a heavily freighted engine inside you lurches to life. A car and a train set out at 2 p.m. from the same point, headed in the same direction. The average speed of the car is 30 miles per hour slower than twice the speed of the train. Relate the story to the real world. When relatives sent a pullback and race car, your son cheered, "All by itself," and you watched from the couch after that. In 2 hours, if the car is 20 miles ahead of the train, look for keywords, look for a pattern. Waking once to a midnight air horn, "Mom, Mom, Mom, Mom," meant that's all trains ever said to you again. Don't let the word if distract you. Write down everything that comes to mind as you're solving the problem. Because your mother didn't want to ask your father for a ride to the store again, they're out of milk and bread again. Ask yourself, what do I know? What do I want? What can I do? Consider, is this a problem you've encountered before? Atypical, they said, eyeing your mother's scans. Close call. To reinstate her license, a 2-hour behind-the-wheel test is standard practice. Practice, practice, practice. To be successful, you need to turn the situation you're facing into numbers you can calculate. To heal, her brain's on a 2-year countdown. So is your son. By then, he'll be off, his back seat packed. What is the rate of the car? Simplify when possible. Eliminate all non-essential information. Your mother's issues called cognitive drift, staying on track. In rehab, they say go. She has to solve the problem in her head. Try the guess and check strategy, or work in reverse at the end to see if you wind up with your original problem. Backing down the driveway, you used to face the station wagon's rear, scan the street, pretend to steer your family into traffic. Crossing tracks, you'd lift your feet and hold your breath and save each one of them. And I'm going to end with a poem that has the most bring on the spring mojo that I can muster. Here we go. This is going to work for sure. And this is a poem from my friend Vernon, who used to say that not picking up a pen, if you walked by a penny on the street and didn't pick it up, it was like turning your back on the angels. This poem is called Abner and Jane's Flower Shop, 2 cents and up. Abner points to explain that stems and blooms are sold separately. 3 nickels and a quarter already in their mason jar. In my pocket, 2 found pennies that gleamed like dandelions laid out on a sheet. My friend who's dead still stops me in my tracks. Who'd walk right past two shining angels in their path? Who can afford that? Abner calls the clover rare, as in a penny cast into tall grass, train flattened. I nod. I've been that. Rare as in, let's run more tests. As in, you'll pay dearly for this. Though my kids don't remember my inpatient stint or the going away weeds they thrust to me in little fists. Great luck or miracle, flower or blooming weed. Abner takes one dramatic step back. Take your pick. Jane peeks from behind him, her grinning baby teeth lined up like furrowed seeds. Thank you. Of course, yes, yes. I'd love to. Yes?
When I read your poetry, I found that I couldn't find the internal rhythm. I could not make it out. So I had to come.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
And secondly, there are a couple of your poems that stopped my heart dead.
Thank you.
And I don't know if that's good for me when I read poetry or not, but it happened. And if you have time, it's a short poem. Would you read one of them?
Sure, an encore, of course. Which one?
A relapse behind bars.
Yes, yes. So that one, and I'll show our friends here. That's on 24. So this is a poem, the only one in the book that looks like this. It's long and narrow. Yes, and it's called Relapse Behind Bars. Each night is a tunnel half dug, possible collapse at any time. You're watched. Too quiet, too fidgety, sleep too much. But they're too easy to fool. Tuck in a dummy body, hide all physical evidence. Your family in dreams reaches out to help. So you chip your pain into pieces, hand it over in bags that tick and tick-tick, then blow. Let me out, you wake, mouthing, and I'll quit hurting people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I hope that it helped to hear the poems, to hear some of the cadence in your head now. I do think that's really useful, even to hear one, to hear a poet read one of his or her poems, then you get that voice in your head. And I think when you go back to the book, I hope that rhythm will be there for you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Other questions?
Would you put your hands together and celebrate that?
Thank you.
One of the things an axiom we have in the African American culture is bring me my flowers while I'm living. And we don't have a bouquet to give her tonight of blossoms. But I think one of the things that we can do tonight, what's one thing that you heard her say tonight? Maybe it was a phrase of verse. Maybe it was something in a poem, an affirmation of something. Let's just take a couple moments in the moments that we have left and just prepare for her a bouquet of affirmation. So who'll start?
That's lovely. Thank you.
When you talked about that line between health and not,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's happened to me. One day I was just young, strong, healthy, and the next day I wasn't. And all I wanted was just to be normal again, just to be regular.
Mm-hmm.
So, wonderful.
You gotta be patient.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one of the lines in that poem, Mom into Fox says, that I used to take heart in these bedtime stories in which anything can happen. And I realized the flip side of that as an adult, right? You think as a child, oh, anything can happen, right? Meaning like any magical thing can come into my life. And then you realize, yeah, but also anything, tragic or difficult or blank can happen, in a second. Yeah.
Yes.
I heard the phrase "never better," but I've never actually focused on how it holds two opposite meanings at the same time.
Thank you.
Until tonight.
Thank you.
Powerful. Others of you, take away an affirmation. Yes, dear.
I love the image in My Daughter Brings Home Bones, how the life and the death and the birth are connected, and the mother lays out the daughter and the daughter lays out the mother.
That was,
Thank you.
that was beautiful.
Thanks.
Someone else.
A peach clinging to her leaves, which is a fabulous image from, and this is one of my favorite poems of Jennifer's, so I thank whoever it was who made the decision to do this broadside. It's a wonderful poem.
Thanks.
Come on, others. The poet is here. The poet has fed you feedback. Yes.
One phrase that sticks in my mind is your daughter gleaming.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
You can always see her or find.
Yeah, so I can always find her.
Mm.
And I like the one about the bird. I mean, as soon as you let it makes it it flies right back into the cage.
Oh, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Anyone else? This is the moment. I'm not going to prolong
Your
it.
daughter sleeping with her arms stretched and her face down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to me like such a pose of sort of childhood exhaustion, right? Of just sort of falling in the bed and staying that way. Yeah.
This is very powerful for the poet.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I like from the bright side, all in orange, they're spilled from the same basket.
Thanks.
And I've been looking over Girls Overheard while eating those jelly beans, and I can't pick a favorite one. Because they're all incredibly good.
Thank you.
This is
Thanks.
happening throughout the whole-
We were at a friend's party recently, and their son had this game. Maybe you've seen it. And they said, "Oh, you have to go play that with Jen because she wrote a poem about this stuff." So it's a game. It's like a little box, and half of it is a spinner, that you sort of flick with your, and then the other half is a bunch of different colored jelly beans, and you flick the spinner, and it lands on a color. And the idea is then you have to eat the color, but you don't know until you eat it if it's it's one of two things, right? It's either like cherry Coke or dog food. That was like one possibility. Or it's like, buttered popcorn or moldy cheese is another one. And what was really great about it, so anyway, we played this for a long time, and we decided that in fact, like one that was supposed to be nasty, which is called cut grass, was actually not bad. And what we realized too is it took a frighteningly long time to decide if it was good or bad, right? You didn't know right away, and you sort of like, dog food, but yes, so there are even party games like that made me think of that.
Well, I'll close this tonight.